Hey, it's Medium Jenny Lee. I'm here with another Raw book discussion. We are on session 31, which makes this video number 32. Here we go. All right. The instrument would like to ask a question. That means Carla. Can she walk alone now as she feels better? So, way back in some previous session, Ra had told them that Carla needed somebody to walk with her because she was having some imbalances. And she was also not being able to breathe, and she almost fainted. So Jim was having to walk with her because she walked 3 to 5 miles a day. So now she's doing better. Ra said, "This is acceptable. Good job, Carla." All right. So this session goes a lot into all of the information about sexual intercourse and what it does to our chakras and what that means. Here we go. So Dawn's asking about bisexual reproduction, which remember is not what we think of bisexual in today's terms. It's talking about two different sexes, male and female reproduction. So they want to get some more definitions and a better understanding of what Ra said in session 26, which we'll briefly go over. I don't want to go over it all over again, but just to review, the red ray, which is your root chakra, doesn't have anything to do. There's no it's a random transfer of energy. Random transfer. Orange and yellow are the first to become blocked because, well, I don't know why because, but it's the first things to become blocked, and it can cause distortions where people have an never-ending appetite for sexual activity because they're constantly searching for the green ray, which is the heart. And it can definitely be a negative transfer because it can cause a person to see another person as an object and a master over them. So in the green ray, so remember, red is root, orange is sacral, yellow is solar plexus. The fourth one, which is your green ray, is your heart center. So if you have vibrations in the green ray, fourth center, heart center, it's a mutual strengthening between the two, and has positive outcomes for the feminine, coming up through the roots and revitalizing the masculine, finding inspiration. All right, so green ray transfers, good. That's kind of what we're all searching for, whether we realize it or not. But the energy transfer is blocked only if one or both entities have a fear of possession, of being possessed, of desiring possession, or desiring being possessed. Which it seems like that would probably come from the orange and the yellow rays, I'm assuming. Another possibility through the green ray heart center is offering the green ray energy from one person to another through universal love. It only results in a blockage if the other person is not open to the green ray, which creates an increasing frustration or appetite towards sexual desires, but also creates polarization towards service to others, which is weird. And then the green ray, blue ray, which would be your throat chakra, doesn't happen very often because we're not good at communicating with each other. And your indigo ray, which is your third eye, is extremely rare It's a sacramental portion of our body whereby contact made through the violet ray with intelligent infinity. And remember, the violet ray is your crown chakra, which according to Ra is like the sum total of your whole energies and their balances and distortions. All right, moving on to new information here. You speak in this material of sexual energy transfer. Could you define that energy transfer and expand upon its meaning, please? Thank you, Don, because all of that in the previous session 26 was extraordinarily confusing. Energy transfer implies the release of potential energies across a potentiated space. The sexual energy transfers occur due to the polarization of two mind-body complexes, each of which have a potential difference one to the other. The nature of the transfer of energy or the blockage of this energy is then a function of the interaction of these two potentials. In the cases where transfer takes place, you may liken this to a circuit being closed. You may also see this activity as all experiential activities as the creator experience in itself. So a circuit being closed is usually a good thing, right? Is you have these energies that are moving, and when the circuit closes, the energy is flowing freely in its course. And this is a way that the creator experiences itself. Dawn asks, would this be the primal mechanism for the creator experience in itself? Not the proper term. Perhaps the adjective would be one appropriate way of the creator knowing itself. So it's not a primal way of the creator knowing itself. It's just one way, one appropriate way. For in each interaction, no matter what the distortion, the creator's experience in itself, the bisexual knowing of the creator by itself has the potential for two advantages. So here we go. Two advantages. Two. Firstly, in the green ray activated being, there's a potential for a direct and simple analog of what you call joy, spiritual and metaphysical nature which exists in intelligent energy. This is a great aid to the comprehension of the truer nature of beingness. So activating the green ray through the sexual activity can bring joy, and it seems like a greater, deeper understanding of the spiritual through knowing ourselves, the true nature of ourselves. The other potential advantage of bisexual reproduction acts in the possibility of a sacramental understanding or connection, shall we say, with the gateway to intelligent infinity. For with appropriate preparation, work in what you call magic may be done, and experiences of intelligent infinity may be had. The positively oriented individuals concentrating upon this method of reaching intelligent infinity, then through the seeking or the act of will, are able to direct this infinite intelligence to the work these entities desire to do, whether it be knowledge of service or ability to heal or whatever service to others is desired. You can see I wrote, wow. So, I'm wondering if you would have to know this before. You know what I'm saying? Because it's saying that you can access intelligent infinity through sexual acts if both of the people are positively oriented and they're concentrating on reaching intelligent infinity through the act of their free will. And then they can basically do magic by using intelligent infinity to help them with the work that they want to accomplish, which the examples that Ra gives are knowledge of service, ability to heal, and others that Ra doesn't tell us about. So would that just happen on its own without us knowing that we're capable of doing that? I don't know. Because it says you have to concentrate upon this method. Like both people would have to be positively oriented, and they both would have to be concentrating on it. Sounds like something to work towards, right? Yes. Interesting. These are two advantages of this particular method of the creator experience in itself. As we have said before, the corollary of the strength of this particular energy transfer is that it opens the door to the individual mind-body-spirit complex's desire to serve in an infinite number of ways and other self, thus polarizing towards the positive. So it has the potential to have an infinite number of ways of servicing others through positive. But I would say, due to these blockages and the orange and yellow ray of the negative stuff, that there's a lot of other ways that this can go. Okay. Can you expand somewhat on the concept that this action not only allows the creator to know itself, but also creates in our density an offspring and makes available the pathway of another entity to enter the density, having babies? The sexual energy transfer includes the red ray transfer, which is random and which is a function of the second density attempt to grow to survive. To continue, to have more entities, to have more bodies to come into. This is the proper function of the sexual interaction. The offspring, as you call the incarnated entity, which takes on the body-mind complex opportunity offered by this random act or event called the fertilization of egg or seed, causes an entity to have the opportunity to enter this density as an incarnate entity. Yes, babies. This gives the two who are engaged in the bisexual reproduction energy transfer the potential for great service in the area of nurturing the small experienced entity as it gains an experience. The small experienced entity. That's so adorable. We can't call them babies and children anymore. We're going to call them small experienced entities. It shall be of interest at this point to note that there's always the possibility of using these opportunities to polarize toward the negative, and this has been aided by the gradual building up over many thousands of years of social complex distortions, which create a tendency towards confusion or baffling of the service to others aspect of these energy transfer and subsequent opportunities of service to other selves. So yes, thousands of years of us screwing stuff up has made sexual intercourse also a very polarizing towards the negative experience. If a sexual energy transfer occurs in the green ray, I'm assuming in this case there's no red ray energy transfer. Does this mean it's impossible for this particular transfer to include fertilization and the birthing of an entity? Incorrect. There's always red ray energy transfer due to the nature of the body complex, but it's random. So a random result of this energy transfer will be as it will be, as a function of the possibility of fertilization at any given time in a given pairing of entities. The green ray energy transfer occurs due to the vibratory rate of each entity being undistorted in a vital sense by the yellow and orange ray energies. Thus, the gift being given freely, no payment being requested either of the body or mind or the spirit. The green ray is one complete universality of love. This is a giving without expectation of return. Without expectation of a return. So I would like to know how many people feel like they've had that experience, where they're using their heart, giving freely, not expecting in return. And then how many people think that happened in both people? Did the other person also do that? Not expecting anything in return? I can honestly say that I don't know if I've ever experienced that before. So, but I know personally that I have a lot of distortions in the yellow and orange because I have trauma when it comes to that. So I definitely have distortions, and I don't want them. It would be nice to have this green ray energy transfer, and it would be nice to definitely have the energy transfer that allows us to access intelligent infinity. That sounds really cool. But I can also honestly say that I don't know if I'll ever experience that in this lifetime because of all of the terrible, horrible crap that has been built up over my 40 years of life when it comes to all of this. So let me know if you're willing to share your information. You know, no details or anything, but do you feel like you've ever experienced this kind of transfer through purely the heart? I would like to know. And if so, what kind of experience was that? How great was it? Inquiring minds would like to know. I was wondering if there was some principle behind the fact that a sexual union does not necessarily lead to fertilization. I'm not interested in the chemical or physical properties of it. I'm interested in whether or not there is some metaphysical principle that leads to couples having a child, or is it purely random? This is random within certain limits. If an entity has reached the seniority whereby it chooses the basic structure of the life experience, this entity may then choose to incarnate in a physical complex which is not capable of reproduction. So remember, the seniority means that an entity has moved up through the sublevels of the third density toward the fourth density, and when they get to the higher sublevels of the third density, they get to make decisions about where they incarnate, who they incarnate into, and even what kind of things might be available for that particular entity that they're coming into. So this is interesting because they're saying that a higher density being with seniority might choose to come into a body that isn't capable of reproducing. Not saying that a higher density being would decide to, or that anybody that can't reproduce is, but they might choose to not be able to reproduce. Thus we find some entities which have chosen to be unfertile. Other entities through free will make use of various devices to ensure non-fertility. Except for these conditions, the condition is random. So, birth control and, etc. But having a fertilized egg is completely a random thing. In earlier material, you mentioned magnetic attraction. Could you define and expand on this term? We use the term to indicate that in your bisexual natures, there is that which is of polarity. This polarity may be seen to be variable according to the male and female polarization of each entity. Each entity biologically male or female. Thus you may see the magnetism when two entities with appropriate balance, male and female versus female-male polarity, meeting and feeling the attraction, which polarized forces will exert upon the other. The strength of the bisexual mechanism, this is the strength of the bisexual mechanism. It does not take an act of will to decide to feel attraction for one who is oppositely polarized sexually. So we have no control over who we are attracted to. It has to do with the polarization. It will occur in an inevitable sense, giving the free flow of energy a proper avenue. This avenue may be blocked by some distortions toward a belief or condition which states to the entity that this attraction is not desired. So we can block it through our distortions, but we can't fight it because it's going to just happen. However, the basic mechanism functions as the magnet and the iron. It's going to attract to each other, even if you don't want it to. We have what seems to be an increasing number of entities incarnate who have what is called homosexual orientation. Could you explain and expand on this concept? Okay. Before we get into this part of this session, remember this is 1981. People being homosexual was still completely like an underground thing. It was not accepted by the vast majority of people, and I feel like in a lot of respects, a lot of people might not have even known that it was a thing. So now, it's 2022, and we don't just have people that are homosexual. We have a whole gamut and array of different of people who feel differently about themselves, about their bodies, about each other, and things have completely shifted in a different way. So what's going to be coming up? Remember, you have to look at it in the context of it being 1981. And I don't know how you're going to feel about it, especially if you are in that one of those expanding categories of other orientations or feelings about yourself and others. So remember, I'm just the messenger. I'm just reading this book that was written in the 80s. So if something comes up in it that you do not feel is okay, I have nothing to do with it. I'm just reading it to you. But regardless, if you do have some sort of issue with what they're saying, or on the contrary, if you feel like some part of it might be true to you, then put it in the comments and let's have a discussion about it. Because it does not hurt to have a discussion about any of this stuff. It's, Okay, ready? Are you ready? Here we go. Entities of this condition experience a great deal of distortion due to the fact that they have experienced many incarnations as biological male and biological female. This would not suggest what you call homosexuality in active phase, were it not for the difficult vibratory condition of your planetary sphere. Let's stop there for a second. I always felt like the first part of this was true, especially for people who what we now refer to as transgender, who feel like they're the opposite of what they came into biologically. Because I have always believed in reincarnation, and I personally felt way more masculine for the majority of my life than I did feminine. And I didn't understand being a girl, and I didn't understand the whole femininity aspect of living. And for me personally, I felt like the reason why I might feel like that is because I probably had more lives as a man than I had as a woman. And that's what Ra is saying here. However, Ra is saying that it wouldn't be actively sought out or participated in if it wasn't for the difficult vibratory condition of our planetary sphere. So we have crazy, weird vibrational crap happening on planet Earth that's causing it to be an active thing, that people actually do decide that they don't want to be with the opposite sex, or that they decide that they do want to be the opposite sex. It's partly due to this vibrational condition of our planetary sphere of Earth, which kind of, now that I'm thinking about it, kind of makes sense, because it feels like the vibration of our planetary sphere has gotten more difficult in like the last 10 years. And now we have more people that are wanting to not fit into the normal, that they're feeling like they're not part of that system. And, you know, I'm a teacher, I'm a high school teacher, and I've been a teacher for 8 years. So within that 10-year time span, and I have personally seen the drastic uptick of teenagers wanting to express themselves differently, wanting to experience the different, have different experiences through the spectrum of all of these different, you know, orientations or whatever you want to call them. And it just keeps getting, like, the number of teenagers that are deciding to experiment with these or have that experience or feeling like they are, or, you know, it's like the percentage just keeps growing. And if it has to do with difficult vibratory stuff, it kind of makes sense, because our vibratory stuff has gotten even crazier. So it would make sense that there's even more people that are feeling this way. That's just my take on it anyway. But there's more. But wait, there's more. There is what you may call a great aura infringement upon the crowded urban areas in your more populous countries. Under these conditions, the confusions will occur. Why does density of population create these confusions? Goodness gracious, can I read the sentence? The bisexual reproduction urge has its goal not only the simple reproductive function, but more especially the desire to serve others, being awakened by this activity. In an overcrowded situation where each mind-body-spirit complex is under a constant bombardment of other selves, it is understandable that those who are especially sensitive would not feel the desire to be of service to others. This would also create the probability of a lack of desire or a blockage of the red ray reproductive energy. So let's stop there for a second. I don't like the way this is worded. I can understand that in a crowded situation, in an overcrowded situation, that less people would want to reproduce. Even heterosexual people would maybe not want to reproduce as much or as many or at all in an overcrowded situation. But this is like the sentence that those who are especially sensitive would not feel the desire to be of service to others, I feel like is not true. And I think maybe Ra is just saying that it's not, that they don't desire not to be of service to others in that specific regard of reproduction. Because there's plenty of people who decide not to reproduce through their sexual orientation or not, that are still of great service to others and still do great, amazing things. You know what I mean? Okay, let's go to the next part. In an uncrowded atmosphere, the same entity would, through the stimulus of feeling the solitude about it, then have a much more desire to seek out someone to whom it may be of service, thus regularizing the sexual reproductive function. Which I can see that. If you were in a very unpopulated place and you felt solitude, that you would have a desire to have a family, you know, to have your own offspring. That kind of makes sense. Roughly how many previous incarnations would a male entity in this incarnation have to have in the past as a female to have a highly homosexual orientation in this incarnation? If an entity has had roughly 65% of its incarnations in the sexual biological body complex, the opposite polarity of its present body complex, this entity is vulnerable to the aura infringement of your urban areas and may perhaps become what you call homosexual nature. So 65%. And it's either way, male or female, doesn't matter. It is to be noted at this juncture that although it is much more difficult, it is possible in this type of association for an entity to be of great service to another in fidelity and sincere green love ray of a non-sexual nature, thus adjusting or lessening the distortions of sexual impairment. So this is pretty much what I was saying earlier. But just because somebody doesn't want to have children through whatever that means, that they can still be of great service through the green ray in a non-sexual way. But what this part means, I don't know. Adjusting or lessening the distortions of its sexual impairment. Like the fact that Ra uses the word sexual impairment here is going to make a lot of people upset. But biologically, if the earth purpose, the physical purpose of sexual interaction is to have a child, then yes, homosexual sexual interactions are not going to have a child. But there's so many, Ra said, there's so many other things that come about from sexual interactions that have nothing to do with having a baby. The green ray energy transfer, the blue ray energy transfer, all the connection to the infinite, the intelligent infinity. So that's not an impairment, because if you can still access those advantages of a sexual interaction, whether it's a man and a woman or two women or two men or whatever, then that's not an impairment. Right? Yes? Let's continue. Timothy Leary. Oh, goodness gracious. I didn't look up who Timothy Leary was because I already know a little bit about who he is. But I don't know a lot about him. I just know he's the LSD guy who got real into taking acid because he had spiritual experiences and he felt like other people should too, is the limited knowledge I have of Timothy Leary. But if you have other knowledge of Timothy Leary than I do not, please put it in the comments so that we all know more information about Timothy Leary. Timothy Leary wrote that at the time of puberty and up through that time, there is an imprint occurring on the DNA coding of an entity that, for instance, sexual biases are imprinted due to an early sexual experiences or some of the first sexual experiences of the entity. Does anything like that actually happen? So that's partly correct. Due to the nature of solitary sexual experiences, it is in most cases unlikely that what you call masturbation has an imprinting effect upon later experiences. So if you're doing something by yourself, it doesn't really affect you later on. This is similarly true with some encounters of which might be seen as homosexual among those of this age group. These are often instead innocent exercises of curiosity. So any, curious, innocent things that happen among children, but they have to be curious and innocent. Sometimes that is not the case, are not going to have effect upon them later. However, it is quite accurate that the first experience in which the mind-body complex is intensely involved will indeed imprint the entity for that life experience of set preferences. A set of preferences. So that makes sense. Like your first love, your first major experience, your first traumatic experience, anything that really intensely involves you is going to set a precedent for the rest of your life experience. That makes sense. Does the Orion group use this as a gateway to impressing upon entities preferences which could create negative polarization? Just as we, the Confederation, attempt to beam our love and light whenever given the opportunity, including sexual opportunities. So the Orion group will use an opportunity if it is negatively oriented, or if the individual is negatively oriented. What the hell? Stay out of it, guys. We don't need to be doing this. Just get out of here. Let us earthlings be. Is there any emotional bias that has nothing to do with male-female sexual polarity that can create sexual energy buildup in entity? The sexual energy buildup is extremely unlikely to occur without the sexual bias upon the part of the entity. It would take an entity with the potential for sexual activity to experience a sexual energy buildup. So if you've never experienced it before, you wouldn't have a buildup because you don't know what it is. Duh. I was thinking more of the possibility of the Orion group having influenced certain members of the Third Reich, World War II Germans, who reported having sexual gratification from the observation of the gassing and killings of entities in the gas chamber. Good God Almighty. I did not know about this. This is awful. These entities had the potential for sexual energy buildup. The choice of stimulus is certainly the choice of the entity. Free will, yay free will, these entities were strongly polarized orange ray, thus finding the energy blockage of power over others, the putting to death being the ultimate power over others, thus then being expressed in a sexual manner through solitarity. Disgusting. In this case, the desire would continue unabated and be virtually unquenchable. Yikes. Is that what happens, causing serial killers and serial rapists? Good God Almighty. Okay. You will find, if you observe the entire spectrum of sexual practices among your people, those who experience such gratification from domination over others, either from rape or from other means of domination. In each case, it is an example of an energy blockage which is sexual in nature. Yes. Damn orange ray blockages. Okay. Would the Orion group then be able to impress on entities the orange ray effect? Is this the way that this came about? Is this the way these concepts came to our planet? If we go back to the beginning, there must be a primal cause of this. So you can tell Don's upset about all this. And he wants to know if it's the damn Orion group's fault. Did they start this shit? The cause is not the Orion group. It's free choice of people, which is difficult to explain. The sexual energy transfers and blockages are a more a manifestation or example of that which is more fundamental than the other way about. Therefore, as your peoples became open to the concepts of bellicosity and greed of ownership, these various distortions then began to filter down through the tree of the mind into body complex expressions, the sexual expression being basic to that complex. Thus, sexual energy blockages through Orion influence intensified are basically the product of the beingness chosen freely by your people. So, no, we just did it ourselves because we are greedy assholes who like to hurt others. And we've been doing it for thousands of years. Yay, humans. Jesus. Okay. If this then works through the racial memory to infect the entire population in some way, does that sort of thing happen? So remember, racial is not talking about races. Like, it's not talking about like Africans versus white people or Hispanic versus Asian or whatever. It's talking about racial as far as humans in general, humans being the race. The racial memory contains all that has been experienced. There is some contamination even of the sexual, this showing mostly in your own culture as the various predispositions to adversity, adversary relationships, as you call them, marriages, rather than the free-giving one to another in the love and light of the infinite creator. What are you saying, Ra? Let's read this again. There is some contamination, even of sexual, in your culture, of the predispositions of marriages, rather than free giving from one to another in the love and light of the infinite creator. Okay, so in my late teens, early 20s, I thought marriage was an archaic thing that needed to be just completely just eradicated. And this makes me feel like and now I understand why I felt that way, because there are all of these predispositions and traditional things and thoughts throughout our cultures through so many hundreds and thousands of years of what marriage is supposed to be. And in a lot of ways, the institution of marriage, probably not in all cultures, but in a lot of them, places the man in a status of being above the female in this role of ownership in a lot of ways. And you can individually decide that that's not what marriage means to you, but it's still there as part of our racial memory. So yeah. I had kind of forgotten that I felt that way about marriage, because it was such a long time ago, and I've been married for so long now, and but I don't know, there's something to it. How many marriages don't last? 50% or something? We're almost done. Okay. Dawn says, that was precisely the point I was trying to make. Oh, Dawn. Okay. Then Dawn asks if there's anything else we can do to make Carla more comfortable, like they ask at the end of every session. So then Ra says, we do not wish to deplete the instrument. However, there is, shall we say, an energy exchange which we feel an honor duty to offer, when this instrument opens itself. Therefore, we counsel this instrument to attempt to access the vital energies carefully before offering itself as an open channel. But they're all is well, they're conscientious. So I don't know what they mean here. Energy exchange, which we feel an honor duty offer, this instrument opens itself. Counsel this instrument to attempt to access vital energies carefully. So I guess being conscious of her own vital energies before she's opening herself up to them, to Ra. I guess that makes sense, yeah? This has been a hell of a ride on session 31. Let's review what we learned in this session. It was all about sex and the chakras and the advantages of and disadvantages of, and reproduction, which just happens to be random. But if you have seniority in the higher densities, then then you can kind of choose, not like, it seems like there's not an option for you to like make your own body, because the potential for a body to be made is just a completely random thing. But once you've chosen that that's the body you want, then you can make some modifications to what your path might be for that particular incarnation. We also learned that you cannot fight who you're attracted to, that it's just going to happen. We learned about, Ra talked about what it means, what the influences are of being homosexual, and you can take that or leave it, because that is your own personal beliefs and thoughts and feelings, and no one should tell you what's what, you know. But if there was anything in there that was helpful to you, then awesome. If not, just toss it out. I do feel like the incarnation part of that was very interesting. 65% incarnations in the other type of body would make you confused, which I feel personally. And I feel like I know quite a few other people who also have felt that personally. Okay. And then Dawn was really hoping that all the real bad sexual shit was the Orion group's fault. But Ra had to burst his bubble and tell him that no, it was part of free will and part of the way our society and culture of humans has existed throughout our whole time here on this planet. Wonderful. And then there was some things brought up about marriage, which, you know, it was just a little bit. So let's not get overworked here about that. Okay. That's been session 31. 31? 31. All right. I hope that you got something out of this one. Remember, let's have a discussion here. So what do you think? What are your comments, concerns, questions? Talk, discuss. Let's keep the conversations going here about all this raw contact stuff. And don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. If this is the first raw contact video you have stumbled across, there are 31 more before this one, and there's going to be a whole lot more afterwards. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.